Well, thanks for tuning into BloombergQuint. Now, it's important to assess what the impact of this Supreme Court verdict is for the telco, for the sector, and for the individual telcos. And who better than Rajiv Sharma to do it? He joins us right now to talk about that. Rajiv, good having you. Thanks much for taking the time out. Did the judgment surprise you in any fashion whatsoever?
Hi, Niraj. It's a pleasure to be here. So, I think, there was a debate whether it will be 20 or 15. That was the broader debate. Tata Tele's arguments during the proceedings did push to a scenario of 7. And I think the debate then changed to 7 and 15, maybe, from a bench perspective. And we came to,
A neutral
10
ground.
years. Now, I think it is, it is very interesting that the business, the way, so if one understands the business, the judgment can be a little different, because the way it works is that capex is the lifeblood of the business of a telco. And if the telco is not investing enough in a very competitive market where the rest of the players are relatively better on balance sheet and ahead on the network investments, then it is the weaker player is bound to lose market share. And if the whole argument is that we have to protect government dues, then you have to understand the business model that the one has to allow them to invest in networks to hold on to their subscribers. If that is not happening, that you're not leaving enough cash on the table, then subscribers will come down and market share will come down, subscribers will be lost, and ultimately your ability to generate EBITDA, which is your cash, which will decide everything, is lesser and lesser. So more when you give 20 years or 15 years, then you can attract equity investors, or you can attract even the
That's
promoter
true.
to be, positive about the whole thing.
That's true. So, is this 10 years a big disappointment for Bharti Airtel, or is it a minor disappointment? I mean, 15 would have been better, but 10 as it stands right now, what does it mean for Airtel?
Bharti has not that much to lose between a 10 and 15, but higher the better, because you, from your ability to invest today in network, that ability increases. But at the same time, one of your competitors is getting little weak. So there is a trade-off. But I think the bigger respite for Bharti was silence on the Aircel and Videocon dues, because you've seen, just before the whole topic started being raised, there was an assumption, or there was a possibility that RCom's dues will be paid by RGO and Aircel and Videocon dues will be paid by Bharti, and that would have been quite complex because they've not taken the full spectrum, and they've cleared some dues and DOTs approved the sale and all that. That it could have meant, and the Bharti stock corrected by that much, $30, which was the possible liability. So that was a big respite, and that's where the Bharti share prices come back to those levels. Now there is another possibility that, given that there is an interest included in the AGR dues already, will there be a 8% or 9%, which we are all calculating and arriving at numbers. So if, let's say, that's not the case, there is no interest on interest, I think, which Kapil Sibal mentioned over the news. So in that case, we may see Bharti's liabilities being 2,600 annual, and Vodafone liabilities being 5,000 annual. So,
okay, but I'm just wondering, won't this decision shift to NCLT? So, isn't that an overhang that exists in the future?
It does exist. So it's completely not out of the woods, but it's not happening right away.
Right.
And you have two top players equally facing the heat there, and Geo's liabilities will be more of 25,000, or double of what Bharti's will be. But it allows Bharti enough time to be more gradual on the issues than everything coming together.
That's true. Okay, so you're saying this is net positive for Airtel, and it has the balance sheet strength and the cash flows to be able to meet the additional liability coming out of the AGR dues, right? Whether it is with interest or without interest, Airtel will be able to do it. I mean, we're not getting into the question of how it will combat Jio via capex, etc. I'm just talking about the liability burden. Airtel's balance sheet and cash flows will take care of.
So the now situation, if we look
Now
at
situation,
now,
yes.
yes, it is relatively better placed and it can take care. But if you're talking about a scenario around 5G or more 4G auctions, then we have been saying this, we've been writing this, that Bharti has to bring down its net debt from 2.8, 2.9 times to a lower number, because end of the day, Geo has deleveraged.
Yeah,
And
sure.
Reliance Industries has deleveraged. That gives enough room for Geo to come and invest in new technologies. And 4G has taken the market from 13 to 3 or 2. Can 5G take it from 2 to 1?
That's a big thing. Okay. So therefore, my question then is that would you be net positive on Bharti Airtel as a stock? Because I remember the last note that I read of yours, you were, well, not negative. You did believe that Bharti Airtel could have some upsides. Now, post these announcements, etc., and the change of the atmosphere, are you still positive on Airtel as a stock?
Yeah, we have a significant upside of 690 from here, and we have a buy on the stock. So we believe that when the market repairs in terms of consolidation, the ability to take tariffs, the ability to push 4G, and it's so, it is Vodafone generates a $6 billion revenue today. But if the ARPUs were to go to 250, and that's the Bharti's narrative of 250, 300, that itself can be a 11 billion US opportunity, Vodafone. And the reset which happens in Bharti's own base, Jio's own base. So Vodafone, going out and sector consolidating can add 15, $16 billion US revenues to the sector.
Okay, to be shared or split or whatever it is between the two, as the case may on. By the way, speaking of Vodafone, and then I'll come to the final question on this interaction will be whether the ARPUs can be increased or not. But before that, what does this verdict mean for Vodafone? A Vodafone idea, I mean.
They have to continue with the legal recourses, which whatever they are available to them, because it was a policy decision it's a more of a policy decision taken at the highest level at the cabinet. So not really not very getting this tightly decided by the court. And if government has to protect both the liabilities, then it is quite possible, if government understands this logic pretty well, then they themselves could be the petitioner in terms of review petition and others. So that is one. Second, they will have to look at raising funds, be it promoters, be it, but it's going to be very, very tricky. And if I was to give a probability to that scenario, it will be less than 10%.
Okay. So then, therefore, let's assume that the legal options, we don't know how they will shape up. So let's not take into consideration. Does Vodafone have the ammo to be able to service this? Let's assume that they have to pay interest. If they don't have to pay interest, then that's an additional benefit. Fine. But if they have to pay the 8% interest, does Vodafone have the ability to do this, or will it necessarily have to take some price hikes? And we'll get to the question of whether they can do that or not. But will they have to do that, or can they service it in the current shape and form?
So current EBITDA is enough to meet the current interest costs. Then you have the spectrum repayments which come up after 2 years. Currently, we are in the moratorium on that, which is roughly 14,000. You let go the interest part, it's still 10. And then you have the AGR, let's say it's no interest, 5,000, 15. And assuming a very, very marginal capex of 7, 8,000, so you're talking about 22,000. So you have to take your revenues up by 44,000, assuming this is your EBITDA, which you need to generate incrementally. And you spread it over, the subscribers, you need another 130, 140 rupees of ARPU. So we're talking about a 250, 260 ARPU. If, there is no other help and it is to be from the market. Now, there was a possibility of tariff hike if Jio was to pay the ARCOM dues of 30,000 odd crores. But we not in that scenario. But is Jio happy with this kind of ARPU where it operates today? Not really. They would also love to see. But can we see, 40% tariff hike has led to 10 to 15% improvement in ARPU. So a double of tariff hike means the democracy doesn't allow that kind of tariff hikes in a sector which is considered essential services.
Yeah, that's true. And therefore, my last question on this conversation. I'm guessing, by the way, so two-part question. One, I'm guessing that you are not positive on Vodafone Idea in any fashion whatsoever, never mind the price that it would be in. Whether it's even possible to fundamentally take a check on if part of my question, will any of the price hikes be a factor of what Geo does, or will the telcos be able to take it irrespective?
If a telco can drive its 4G upgrade, then you don't depend on the competition, be it Jio or a Bharti. But then if you can do something on your postpaid high-end base or something on the enterprise where currently Jio is not that much, again you are not depending on competition. But the driving 4G, if I am talking about Bharti, is still something very doable. But Voda, it comes to the question of capex. So, and you cannot overnight drive 4G migration because you're way behind, others. So I think we are still depending on tariff hikes there.
So buy Reliance, buy Bharti, don't touch Vodafone. Is that a good summation?
So we currently, yes, we have a buy on Bharti, we have a buy on Reliance. Our rating has been under review for Vodafone. Target price, because we don't know which is it upfront, is it a going concern, is it not a going concern. Now that we have some clarity, we'll be revisiting the. But we did a scenario that if it was 15-20 years, the fair value would have been somewhere around $6 to $7 per share.
But now that it is 10 years, it might be slightly different. Yeah. Got it. Okay. I look forward to this note today or tomorrow as it comes, Rajiv. But thank you so much for taking the time out and being with us today on BloombergQuint. Appreciate your time. Viewers, thanks for tuning in. I hope this gives you clarity on Bharti Airtel, Vodafone, and arguably Reliance.